Okay, hello everyone, welcome to today's episode. Advancement beyond stories in the void. And in some sense, will that advancement be the dream of dreams? I would say that our story begins where the eyes of the human being open. The eyes of the human being open and world is found. So first, when our eyes open, we notice the overall location. We see the world. From the world, we then find ourselves. We find our world, then we find ourselves. The relationship of self and world lands as a story in our eyes. Light turns to sight. Sight turns into language. Then language moves different than the sight, which becomes a decision. You know, it's like a certain order. It's like when it comes to conception, the conception of the human position, right now we are being something, you know? So the question is starting from us already being something, but the relationship we have to something comes from nothing. So it's as if first there was nothing in the room, then there was a world, then there was a self. Then this self opened its eyes, saw a world. Then from that world, it copy-pasted a subjective world. A subjective self, sorry. From the subjective self comes then a subjective world. So same pattern repeats. So I can tell you nothing is the world of something. That means something is a sense of self in a world that is nothing. And of course, these are words. Human existence can totally surpass words. We could all be human beings in just the observable pocket of the universe and not realizing there's so much more beyond it. So it can be a possibility that maybe what human knowledge we have as a species works for the species, but beyond our own eyes, it could be meaningless. There could be a totally different game behind everything. You know, sometimes a person needs space before they can move. And it's strange, excuse me, it's strange because we need existence as a space for experience to happen. Existence is the space for experience. Without an existential vehicle and body, there is no pinpointing of the experiencer. Sometimes I think about it in the way where right now as I'm speaking to you, I'm an individual in human form. That means when my eyes opened this morning, I saw a human in the mirror, you know? And so there is the human form, the vehicle we cannot in some sense dismiss. It is what is in the room first. It's pretty much where you have parked your consciousness, you know, poetically. So existence, it's as if like, what's the purpose of existence? To experience it. What's the purpose of experience? To continue existing. That means all the knowledge that we are seeking here on this planet is to just enhance the continuity, to keep on keeping on. You know, there was that movie, Joe Dirt, I think. You know, it's funny. It's like if you're a materialist, okay. Sorry guys, this was the Wi-Fi disconnected. I had to restart the streaming software. Anyways, I'll just continue from where my attention is left. I could say that the difference between existence and experience is crucial. We can say the meaning of life is relevant to how we are experiencing existence. And I would say what we get to experience, that is from an existential dimension. Right now, my biological body is being where it is. I can imagine in my inner realm suddenly like being a giant. Imagine being the size of a skyscraper. I can imagine that. Do you know? But the biological body doesn't change. It's as if the biological body is with you, but it's like a friend that's always with you, but it sometimes it doesn't it has a mind of its own. It doesn't listen, you know? I would say that's the nature of the body. It's like a certain, only with certain specific codes, perhaps you can program it in certain ways. But I would say the mind allows you to experience multiple bodies. So let's say the whole purpose of life is to experience existence, you know, to experience a body. And in front of our eyes, we can only experience one kind of body for now. But behind our eyes, endless versions and angles of this body. Sometimes it's space. I feel if people were truly honest with themselves, they will notice how many moments in life there has been where they have actually been nothing. They have just been sight in a moment. You know, I'll say one thing to the listeners. If you see how I draw on paper, you will understand how I speak. Um, I would say, uh, ultimately, what the mind perceives, it echoes into reality. The mind is like a river. Pretty much sensory perception enters and reflects back out as a subject moving an object. Light enter our eyes and we become a character in a story in the middle of nowhere. Now, the question I would say is, what would the advancement beyond stories be like? Technically, if all stories are in the void and we want to advance them, advance beyond stories, either we return to the void, or we are completely beyond the void. So right now we are creatures. We are experiencing creaturehood. One can say the advancement completely beyond stories would be non-existence. That means an existential being, let's say an immortal existential being, got so bored that inevitably after eons, non-existence became the other side of the coin that hadn't been seen. So an advancement beyond stories could mean that somehow we have surpassed the need to map the cosmos. Really, that's really what the individual allows. Sometimes I feel individual consciousness is the tool in the hand of an eternal being. You know, I feel that uh, who I am existing right now, like my honest feeling, guys. This is Mr. Within's honest feeling. Like, I'll tell you, I am not just what's here. It's very obvious to me. It's very obvious to me that it doesn't matter if it's an object in front of your eyes or if it's a subject. There can be a level of engagement where you can embody it. So it doesn't matter if your eyes are... I mean, I'm saying it in regards to a mystical context. Please keep that in mind, whoever's listening. It's like you pull the strings of the stories of your eyes, of the story of your eyes, and it reverse engineers back into a moment where you were not in control. There was no idea of you in control. In that moment, there is presence. That presence, all we can say is it's the unknown. What can we do with the unknown? And what do we do in a state where we're nothing that can be individual? You become a being that never had to do anything. When you reverse engineer back into the void of your own psyche, pretty much it's like you were trying to find truth, then you realize the truth is like the empty page where all the words are written on. Then when you look at that empty page, you're like, how can it be an empty page? Then you realize the opportunity of your life. You know? To be a believer in a world unexplored is meaningless. To be a disbeliever in a world unexplored is meaningless. You can say all wars on this planet has been because of language misuse. Language has simulated different worlds. It's like language is like a salesman, like a two-faced salesman, you know, and goes to one person and says, all right, do this, you'll go, you know, this is truth, and goes to another and it's like, yeah, this is truth. And it's like this, how can I tell you? Life is bizarre. And the ancient Greeks understood this when they perceived that the universe was chaos. The beginning was chaotic. You know, that means emptiness as an ordered being. If you're wondering what's before emptiness, you know, most likely it's chaos, because you can't see anything else. The order is, you know, it's like where the question is being asked is not where the answer can be seen. The word cosmos means order. Universe was just meaningless movement. We slowed down enough to notice the movement, and we pinpointed the movement, and now we are all in self-imposed stories of the realm. You know, either we need to have the strength of an unknown mind moving a known body, or we need to have the strength of a known body that will never know its mind. That can never know its mind. That means it's either in some sense, uh, either you start from the top of the mountain, or you're never at the top of the mountain. You know. In the subtitle, where I say dream of dreams, right now every human being has dreams, right? And when I say dreams, I'm saying it in the sense of an ambition. Usually human beings wake up with some purpose. Now, whatever kind of purpose it is, you know, it's like it's some sort of activity. The human being is like is a phenomena. This phenomena can direct itself, or if it doesn't direct itself, at least the world does. You know, that means what tends to be is that lost people are found by others. Someone can be lost to themselves, but they can be found to another, you know. Someone could be lost to another and found to themselves in some sense. It's like the beauty of what the mind is doing is that it's like an empty canvas again, imagine, like, and the brush endlessly moves. And so you draw the bit of like the right side of the painting, then you excuse me, the right side of the canvas, you paint on it, and then you suddenly go and start on the left side, then you go start on the bottom side, just total, let's say, even if it's random parts you draw first, you know. It's like trying to draw a portrait of someone, and then what do you start off with? The eyes, you know, the hands, you know, where? It's like, where do you start off? You can start off from anywhere and go to another side and continue finishing the rest of the, you know, painting, you know? And I feel that's kind of what's happening, that every day the mind's greatest challenge is actually try to linearize something that is not linear. We've been here trying to figure it out for eons, you know? For such a long time, trying to figure it out, and it's not linear. You know, Albert Einstein says, we created time so everything doesn't happen at once. That technically means everything is happening at once before we created time. If everything is happening at once, who is there to suffer? What is there to suffer? What heaven? What hell? What earth? They're all happening at once. That means imagine right now, we say there's what am I saying? After Pluto being kicked out of the club, currently 8 members. Imagine there was no space between the planets. Imagine all of that was matter. You know, if it was only the sun and only the earth and nothing else was visible, it's like we wouldn't know which is spinning around which. That means it's just the space between the planets that suggests they're different. It's the space between everything. Space is consciousness. Because space is what is in between two things, you can say it's what's dividing. It's the divider. Space, it divides matter to itself. Space is consciousness. Because we can't be conscious unless there's more than one form, like as if there has to be something and then something has to happen to this something. There has to be more than just the instant snapshot. That means life means nothing if it's a photo. It's that this photo changes like a film, that we have in some sense all our ideology and language being relevant to the changing moment. And so let's say you're a person and you say you have 2 memories. So let's say you are a child and you've lived 2 days consciously, okay? So first day you would have 1 memory, second of a day, and then the second day you would have 2 memories. Then you could have something. Then you could start saying, all right, I have memories. You know, that means there needs to be more than one image of self for there to be a living character. So conscious space is what allows that. And I would say, when I say space is consciousness, I should probably say it differently. I should say space allows consciousness. Space allows matter to be conscious. And so that is one of the great mysteries for the future generations and the future advanced communicators and philosophers. It's like we've established relationships with everything we can see. Now our eyes and the mind's eye is even wondering. The mind sight, you know? Human beings have um, found a certain mastery over biological mobility, over objective mobility. We can move as an object in space. Now, how many people can move as a subject in space? You know? And then the next question, how many people can move as space? I think that's true uh, intuition. Because right now, as I'm speaking, before I speak, I could have two views. I could have a view that the content of the mind is not here, or the content of the mind is endlessly here, and it's like everything we see is just um, uh, tiny part of an endless picture. You know, that means honestly, knowledge, the word of attaining knowledge doesn't make sense. Knowledge is already here. Man has to, in some sense, just see how he is here alongside everything. There was this ideology spoken by this sage. Anyways, the idea, the idea was that the mind is being misused in the modern world, in the sense of fulfilling the appetite of the desires, but actually the mind should be the leader of, you can say, the ultimate desire beyond individual outcome. You see, right now, if I think about, honestly, if I wanted to be selfish, you know, if I wanted to selfish my whole life, some stories never get old, you know. Honestly, I feel like I think every human being is just throughout the day potentially just shifting between these three gears where you're either past based, you're either present based, or you're future based, your psychology. That means the psychology has to choose a point, you know, we have to choose a GPS location, you know? So that means when I think about how I can be, how identity, individuality is here, either I'm looking at the past and I'm like, okay, there was this in the past, you know, and then there comes a sort of basis for meaning, or I look at just the content of the moment. The moment, the presence of the moment is very quiet, you know. The past is you can say, where complaints never end. And you can say the future is novelty's home. So if I have a future-based mind, I would not care for the past. I would look at the present and wonder how it could actually deviate from the past. Really, it's like our minds are invisible containers, and from the moment we wake up, in accordance to everything we see, we're putting stuff in these physical containers. We're putting, uh, it's like anything your energy throughout the day uh, goes to. It kind of it just enters the container of your vision, pretty much. God. We have really, like, it's very hard to speak about ideas that uh, become irrelevant to human design. Because to truly wonder about the advancement beyond stories means it's to wonder about what's going to happen after personhood. Guys, I'm going to go into a quote tunnel before I end off here. Um, okay, so I'm just going to read a bunch of quotes on the mind. Aristotle, you will never do anything in this world without courage. It is the greatest quality of the mind, next to honor. Henry David Thoreau says, any fool can make a rule and any fool will mind it. Napoleon Hill, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Napoleon Hill says, think twice before you speak, because your words and influence will plant the seed of either success or failure in the mind of another. Yep, we're all gardeners when we speak. Buddha says, do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment. Plato says, knowledge which is acquired under compulsion obtains no hold on the mind. Yeah, anything that isn't received through the true pace of your intelligence is dismissed. Yeah. John F. Kennedy says, our progress as a nation can be no swifter than our progress in education. The human mind is our fundamental resource. Marcus Aurelius, nothing has such power to broaden the mind as the ability to investigate systematically and truly all that comes under thy observation in life. Yeah, your eyes are a camera. Don't you want to know what's moving, what you're filming in this life, what's moving? I think every human being can have that. Have a state of being of hypersensitivity of our attention. Think about it. Like we came from the forest. We used to live in jungles. We have access to hyper attention, hyper smell. I even feel the human ability to smell. I mean, of course, there's genetical difference, but I would say I think all our senses were way more heightened, and like a blade that wasn't used and I don't know, throughout time got dull. I don't know how to say it, but if you observe your life and how it's happening, everything is there, you know? Everything is there before the word truth. You know, that means even if the person wants to, let's say there's some ultimate secret truth out there, you know? And let's say you want to experience it, you're going to ask yourself eventually, how do I receive my moment? And every moment of your life has been a moment of your life. That means we receive life and meaning and realism momentarily. That means a moment ago, you were in a different universe. And a moment before that, you were in a different universe. And a moment after this, we will be in a different universe. Do you see what I mean? Like, it's like the momentary reception of the realm. Kind of like a glass orb moving over a surface, colored surface. You know, everywhere it goes, it takes the color of what's underneath. Khalil Gibran says your living is determined not so much by what life brings to you as by the attitude you bring to life. Not so much by what happens to you as by the way your mind looks at what happens. John Locke says reading furnishes the mind only with materials of knowledge. It is thinking that makes what we read ours. Leonardo da Vinci, iron rusts from disuse. Water loses its purity from stagnation. Even so does inaction sap the vigor of the mind. Sigmund Freud. The conscious mind may be compared to a fountain playing in the sun and falling back into the great subterranean pool of subconscious from which it rises. Yeah, pretty much there was like pretty much you can say light and its absence on earth is the echo is the echo how do I say this? Think of as if our solar system was in our planet was in a room and the light was turning on and off, you know? That on and off, its echo is our human morality and psychology. The mind is just repeating. It's like it's just relaying the absence of light and its fulfillment. Calvin Coolidge says knowledge comes, but wisdom lingers. It may not be difficult to store up in the mind a vast quantity of facts within a comparatively short time, but the ability to form judgments requires the severe discipline of hard work and the tempering heat of experience and maturity. Yeah, anything, everything, if there's a road, you can walk it. Pretty much. That's what I'm trying to say. Albert Einstein. Reading after a certain age diverts the mind too much from its creative pursuits. Any man who reads too much and uses his own brain too little falls into lazy habits of thinking. John Milton, the mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell a hell of heaven. Wow. Next level John Milton quote. Aristotle says the energy of the mind is the essence of life. Guys, if these quotes go a bit deeper, it's we can't breathe anymore, I think. It's like each quote I'm reading, I feel like I'm getting closer to the edge of the atmosphere, you know. Plato, nothing can be more absurd than the practice that prevails in our country of men and women not following the same pursuits with all their strengths and with one mind, for thus the state instead of being whole is reduced to half. William Shakespeare, love looks not with the eyes but with the mind, and therefore is winged Cupid painted blind. Winston Churchill, a fanatic is one who can't change his mind and won't change the subject. So all politicians then? Albert Einstein says the monotony and solitude of a quiet life stimulates the creative mind. Albert Einstein says. Plato, when the mind is thinking, it is talking to itself. I would say it's communicating to itself, which doesn't necessarily means communication is limited to words. You know, sometimes in this world I feel like an image. Sometimes I feel like an image is passing through me at the moment. Anyways, Friedrich Nietzsche, he says when 100 men stand together, each of them loses his mind and gets another one. Friedrich Nietzsche says, our treasure lies in the beehive of our knowledge. We are perpetually on the way thither, being by nature winged insects and honey gatherers of the mind. Napoleon Hill, no man is ever whipped until he quits in his own mind. Albert Camus, an intellectual is someone whose mind watches itself. Very well said. Guys, this quote is shared in your social media, whoever you are. Do this for the good of the realm. for the Game of Thrones like honor of the realm, you know? Okay. Buddha, we are shaped by our thoughts, we become what we think. When the mind is pure, joy follows like a shadow that never leaves. Bruce Lee, the possession of anything begins in the mind. Carl Jung, the creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves. St. Augustine, my mind withdrew its thoughts from experience, extracting itself from the contradictory throng of sensuous images, that it might find out what that light was wherein it was bathed, and thus with the flash of one hurried glance it attained to the vision of that which is. Oh my God, St. Augustine was Enlightened, guys. Edgar Allan Poe says words have no power to impress the mind without the exquisite horror of their reality. Walter Scott. Teach your children poetry. It opens the mind, lends grace to wisdom, and makes the heroic virtues hereditary. Okay. Heroic virtue shouldn't be hereditary, guys. I actually disagree with that quote because they. Oh my god, it's raining. Holy shit. Okay, guys, I gotta get out of here really quickly. I'm just gonna run through these quotes. Vincent van Gogh. I put my heart and my soul into my work and I have lost my mind in the process. Galileo Galilei. He says, who would set a limit to the mind of man? Who would dare assert that we know all there is to be known? Marilyn Monroe. I don't digest things with my mind. George Santayana says, the wisest mind has something yet to learn. Thomas Aquinas, it is requisite for the relaxation of the mind that we make use from time to time of playful deeds and jokes. Plutarch says the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. Joseph Addison says cheerfulness is the best promoter of health and is as friendly to the mind as to the body. Hermann Hesse. Our mind is capable of passing beyond the dividing line we have drawn for it. Beyond the pairs of opposites of which the world consists, other new insights begin. James Hume says, one secret of leadership is that the mind of a leader never turns off. Leaders, even when they are sightseers or spectators, are active, not passive observers. Miley Cyrus. You can't live a positive life with a negative mind. And if you have a positive outcome, you have a positive income. And just to have more positivity and just to kind of laugh it off. Yeah, that's kind of strength, really. And it's also efficiency. I mean, it's like the person can be like, what do I deserve right now? Do I deserve like a negative moment right now? But the person could be like, no, I don't deserve it at all, you know? And suddenly, guess what? You're a good person. Don't you wish it was that easy? Paracelsus says the art of healing comes from nature, not from the physician. Therefore, the physician must start from nature with an open mind. Not just the physician, everybody. Okay. Benjamin Jowett says the way to get things done is not to mind who gets the credit for doing them. Chip Conley, at the heart of great leadership is a curious mind, heart, and spirit. Okay. Omar N. Bradley says this is as true in everyday life as it is in battle. We are given one life and the decision is ours, whether to wait for circumstances to make up our mind or whether to act, and in acting to live. Yeah, pretty much like observe and act is the most basic way where there can be some sort of patient endurance, I would say. You just care to look at things, actually look at them. You know, you know what that means? That means to be able to look at everything, you have to be a fool in a strange way. That means no opinion, the opinionless state accesses all the opinions. Just like how space is between different conscious moments, when you imagine remembering as the space, you remember everything that you have held separate from one another, as space. Okay, Abraham Lincoln. Always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other. Benjamin Franklin says, so convenient a thing it is to be a reasonable creature, since it enables one to find or make a reason for everything one has a mind to do. Benjamin Franklin says, games lubricate the body and the mind. Mahatma Gandhi, guys, I don't know who made this list, I'm reading. Mahatma Gandhi says, culture of the mind must be subservient to the heart. Yeah, we gotta abide by the decency resonance, the sincerity resonance within. That's like the backup system to conscious rhythm. Lao Tzu says, to the mind that is still, the whole universe surrenders. This is it, guys. When your mind becomes still, the whole universe surrenders, because it is the whole universe. Right now, it's very difficult for me to try to fathom, am I on Earth or am I Earth? When we go into outer space, we say we are from Earth, right? But we are Earth, actually. We are, like, everybody's the periodic table. That means all consciousness is standing on the periodic table. I don't know who built this table, but Marcus Aurelius says, let not your mind run on what you lack as much as on what you have already. Marcus Aurelius says, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius says, death is a release from the impressions of the senses and from desires that make us their puppets, and from the vagaries of the mind, and from the hard service of the flesh. Voltaire, it is one of the superstitions of the human mind to have imagined that virginity could be a virtue. Thomas Jefferson says, all too will bear in mind the sacred principle that though the will of the majority is in all cases to prevail, that will to be rightful must be reasonable, that the minority possesses their equal rights, which equal law must protect, and to violate would be oppression. Thomas Jefferson says, enlighten the people generally, and tyranny and oppressions of body and mind will vanish like evil spirits at the dawn of day. Okay. Marcus, guys, honestly, I'm just so mesmerized by that quote Marcus Aurelius said. I read it earlier. He said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. You know, Shi Ramana Maharshi, this other human being, enlightened human being, he says, I like in his he says the mysterious power of the mind. It's as if the mind is a sort of power. Experience is a display of power. You know, it's like a sort of power. Now this power doesn't have control over outside events, in the sense that, like, you can't control how the sun moves, you know, you can't control how the wind blows, you know what I mean? But you can control, like, taking shelter from the storm, you know. So that's the power we have over our mind. And unless that's realized, Marcus Aurelius is saying there is no strength. So you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Anyways, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. And really, the dream of dreams, you can say that's a metaphor for the advanced civilization. And advancement beyond stories in the void doesn't necessarily mean we don't exist anymore, but it just means we don't experience ourselves through the filter that language has you know, provided. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys. Blessings.